All right, we're here today at Poulsbo Fish Park. We'll review a few things that are right here around the parking lot. And then I hope you'll come out here and check it out. I'll try to give you some directions as I'm going through the trail so you'll know how to go through and find the things that I'm showing you. But first we have here shore pine. So this is the pine that we have looked at a little bit before. It has the 2 needles in a fascicle. They're a little bit twisted. And then it has these are this year's cones. They're not the brown cones yet, the green cones. And so this is Pinus contorta in the Pinaceae family. Here's another one we've seen before. This is Mahonia aquifolium, the tall Oregon grape, which remember has compound leaves. So these are leaflets. The leaflets are spiny. And this one has the fewer number of leaflets. So just 5 to 7, occasionally 9 leaflets on these compound leaves. Mahonia aquifolium in the Berberidaceae family. Here's a review of our big leaf maple. So remember the large palmately lobed and veined leaves, maple-shaped leaves. And this one doesn't have seeds, but I'll review that when I find the one that does. So Acer macrophyllum in the Aceraceae family, or it's been moved to the Sapondaceae, depending on which book you're looking in. All right, here's a new one we can learn, probably one you see frequently in weedy areas or along the roadsides. This is Queen Anne's lace, or wild carrot. It is related to the carrot you grow in your garden. And it does also have a tap root similar to carrot, but not bred to have the large carrot root that we buy commercially. One thing you notice about these flowers that we'll be talking about more is this is a cluster of flowers, an inflorescence. And you can see how all of those flowers connect down underneath in sort of an umbrella shape. So this type of inflorescence is called an umbel, and it is typical of this family. All the plants in this family have this type of inflorescence with their flowers. So this is Queen Anne's lace. The scientific name is Daucus, D-A-U-C-U-S, carota, C-A-R-O-T-A, like carrot, but carota, because it's in the carrot family. And the family is Apiaceae, A-P-I-A-C-E-A-C-E, Apiaceae. So wild carrot or Queen Anne's lace with that umbel flower. You can see it also, it has compound leaves that are highly divided, but you don't hardly even notice them very much because you see that flower. Here's another common weed that you might see in grassy areas or roadsides. This is one of the dandelions. This is probably actually the false dandelion, but I'm not going to worry about getting too much into the specific differences between them. So we'll just call it dandelion. And the scientific name for dandelion is Taraxacum, T-A-R-A-X-A-C-U-M, officinale, O-F-F-I-C-I-A-N-A-L-E, Taraxacum officinale. And the family is Asteraceae, A-S-T-E-R-A-C-E-C-E, And this whole family has, again, this specific type of inflorescence. This is a cluster of flowers, not just one flower, and it's called a head. It's kind of like that umbel, except it's even more compact. Everything connects down into the center point, but without any pedicels, without any stalks on the flowers. The whole cluster sits down into the receptacle there. So, and that's the whole sunflower family or Asteraceae family, has flowers like that. So Taraxacum officinale, the dandelion. And one more common weedy plant that you'll see in various areas with this, again, a inflorescence, a cluster of flowers. This one is more of what's called a spike inflorescence. But this is plantain, P-L-A-N-T-A-I-N, And the scientific name is Plantago, P-L-A-N-T-A-G-O, lanceolata, L-A-N-C-E-O-L-A-T-A. Its leaves are pretty much basal leaves, a basal rosette, and you can see they have parallel veins in the leaves, and they have this lanceolate elongate shape. That's where the scientific name is coming from, lanceolata. So these basal leaves and this spike inflorescence with white flowers up here. Plantain. And the family is the Plantaginaceae family, P-L-A-N-T-A-G-I-N-A-C-E-A-E. Plantaginaceae. All right, we're also going to see a lot of willows today, and the willows are notoriously difficult to tell apart, except for one that I can almost always tell apart, and I'll talk about it later. But this is one of the ones that's hard to tell. This one is Schouler's willow, S-C-O-U-L-E-R-S, Schouler's willow, and the scientific name is Salix, S-A-L-I-X, Schouleriana, S-C-O-U-L-E-R-I-A-N-A, Schouleriana, and the family is the Salicaceae family, S-A-L-I-C-A-C-E-A-E. And the way you can tell this one is with this more obovate leaf shape. So it's a little bit wider toward the tip of the leaf rather than at the base. And on the back side has a little bit of rusty brown pubescence. And then the twigs are also pubescent with this Schouler's willow. And the leaf color itself is more of a darker green color, but that more obovate leaf shape is usually what you can tell from Schouler's willow. Now the willows have produced their flowers in a tight inflorescence called a catkin that hangs down from the branches, and they've already done that, produced their flowers this year, so we won't see them. But in the early spring, when you see the sort of white fuzz blowing through the air, that might remind you of dandelions, but usually around these areas it is the willows producing their flowers. So this is Schouler's willow. And this is another willow. This is Hooker's willow, and the scientific name is Salix hookeriana, H-O-O-K-E-R-I-A-N-A. And a couple of ways you can tell this one is the more elliptical or ovate shape. So it's widest near the middle or maybe at the bottom. It can vary a little bit. And the wind is blowing. And the leaves are not as dark green usually on this species. And they also have these stipules at the base of the leaf, at the base of the petiole. So these little flaps of tissue, these are stipules at the base of the petiole. You can see them all along the stem. And the back side of the leaf is very white pubescent. So white hairs, very fuzzy, soft fuzzy on the back side of the leaf. So this is Hooker's willow. And of course, most of the time you find the willows growing in wet areas, which is characteristic of Fish Park here where I am. Okay, here's another new one. This is one of our other native dogwoods. This one is the red osier dogwood, sorry, lost my train of thought. Red osier dogwood, which is Cornus, C-O-R-N-U-S, stolonifera, S-T-O-L-O-N-I-F-E-R-A. And you see this cluster of flowers. So this is the inflorescence. Now most of the dogwoods have additional large white bracts that would come out underneath this cluster of flowers, but the red osier dogwood doesn't have that. It just has the cluster of flowers in the middle without the bracts. And then when those flowers develop fruits, you can see some of the fruits developing here. It's a white berry instead of a red berry that most of the dogwoods have. So this one is different in many ways, but it does have some other typical dogwood characteristics. It has opposite leaves, So they're attached opposite each other on the branch. It has those arching veins that, instead of going straight to the margin, come up toward the tip of the leaf. And the red osier dogwood gets part of its name also from its more reddish color stems, or you can see it in the petioles there, reddish color. And this stem over here is a little bit more of that reddish color. So this is red osier dogwood, Cornus stolonifera. It's often in wetter places where you will find it, and the family is Cornaceae. Okay, I've come across the bridge from the parking lot, and I'm taking the first trail to the left. And here's a review of our vine maple. So remember, it has that palmately lobed and veined leaf, but 7 to 9 lobes, and the smaller leaf, of course, than big leaf maple. So this is Acer circinatum in the Aceraceae family, or Sapondaceae family. And remember, the maples all have opposite leaves. You see the opposite leaves there, and these palmately lobed and veined leaves. This one doesn't have the seeds, but you may see those winged seeds or samaras on it as well. Here's another good review. Again, it's a maple-shaped kind of leaf, palmately veined and lobed. But when you touch this one, it's very fuzzy, very soft, and it's not opposite leaves, it's alternate leaves. So this one is our thimbleberry, which is Rubus parviflorus. I think I'm getting that one right this time. And it does have a couple of the fruits over here, the little thimble-shaped red raspberry-looking berry developing. This is in the Rosaceae family with the other blackberries and raspberries. Thimbleberry. Along with our thimbleberry is also in here our Himalayan blackberry, Rubus discolor or Rubus arboniacus. So that more 5 leaflets of palmately compound leaflets for the Himalayan blackberry. Sometimes just 3. And also just next to our thimbleberry is also salmonberry. Remember, on salmonberry, it has the trifoliate compound leaf, and that bottom leaflet, the bottom 2 leaflets usually make that butterfly shape. So if you can see that, it's a good clue for salmonberry. And you won't find a whole lot of berries on it this time of year. Most of their berries are already past. So this is Rubus spectabilis, Rosaceae family. And we've also got a little bit of holly in here, Ilex opaca, in the Aquifoliaceae family. So remember, this one looks kind of like the Oregon grape, but this is a simple leaf, not a compound leaf. Simple leaf, alternate arrangement with the spiny leaf margins. All right, we've also got some cascara in here. This is Rhamnus persiana. And so it has these very straight pinnate veins in the leaf, very finely toothed leaf margin, and the tip of the leaf can vary a lot, anywhere from acute to even being retuse or having that little indentation in many cases. So this is Rhamnus persiana in the Rhamnaceae family, cascara. But don't get it confused with alder, which is growing right next to and looks very similar to, so I'll show you that next. Well, first we'll do Indian plum before I find a good alder that I could show you. So this review is Indian plum, Omalaria cerasiformis in the Rosaceae family. I don't see any of the little tiny plums on this one, but you can almost always tell it by these prematurely turning yellow leaves that you'll see in it. And the leaves are elliptic to maybe obovate in some cases. Fine, sort of delicate, lighter green than some of the other plants that you'll see. Indian plum. All right, here's one we're gonna see several times today. You don't wanna touch this one. So once you find it along the side here, this is stinging nettle. So if you're sensitive to that, it will give you a rash on your hands, but it doesn't last too terribly long. Notice the leaves are a more ovate shape. They're widest at the base. They can even be cordate, heart-shaped at the base, and then coming up to an acute tip. They're serrate with large teeth on the margin, and you can see all the hairs along the petiole and stem and leaf. These are the uncinate hairs that will prick your skin and inject the little bit of toxin that makes you itch and makes you red. Here's the flowers up here on the tip. It's an inflorescence, a cluster of flowers. They're not very showy. They're just kind of a greenish flower. They're wind pollinated, so they don't attract pollinators with bright colors. So that's the flower inflorescence. So this is stinging nettle, Urtica, U-R-T-I-C-A, dioica, D-I-O-C-I-A, dioica, because they are dioecious, which means that they have separate male and female plants. So some will produce the male flowers, some will produce the female flowers in this plant. Here's a review of our red elderberry. This one has compound leaves, so these are leaflets. This is all one leaf, and the leaves are opposite. And there you see the buds and how you can tell that this is all one leaf. So opposite compound leaves, and up at the tip usually is where you'll find the flowers and fruits. If it has any, it produces a red berry. This one doesn't have them, but hopefully I'll find some to show you. And so this one is Sambucus, S-A-M-B-U-C-U-S, racemosa, R-A-C-E-M-O-S-U-S-S-U-A, racemosa, S-A, there, racemosa, in the Caprifoliaceae family. Here is our western red cedar to review. So the scale-like leaves coming out sort of flattened on the branches. This is Thuya plicata in the Cupressaceae family. Here's just a little bit of the fruit of the red elderberry. You can see the inflorescence, the cluster of flowers that has come up right there with a couple of berries left on it. Most of them have fallen. Maybe I'll find some more. All right, here's our western trumpet honeysuckle. This is Lonicera ciliosa. Lonicera, L-O-N-I-C-E-R-A, ciliosa, C-I-L-I-O-S-A. And it's in the Caprifoliaceae family, so the same family as the red elderberry, because this also has opposite leaves. Let's see, there. See opposite leaves, but they're simple leaves, not compound leaves, and sort of an ovate shape, ovate to elliptical, with a smooth margin. They're entire. And you see that honeysuckle shaped flower? I can't get much closer to it than that. So the stamens stick out. It's a fused tubular flower that the butterflies use their long proboscis to get down in for the nectar. So Lonicera ciliosa, it's a vine, and you can see it growing over several of the plants down in here. All right, here is a review of our lady fern. They get much bigger growing down in this wet area than what we saw last time. So you can see these are very large ferns growing here. And on the back sides, you'll find the little spore clusters being produced. And one way to help identify the lady fern is that all the way down to the bottom of the frond, the penny gets smaller and smaller. So they're small at the top, then they get big in the middle, then they get smaller again at the bottom. So that's one characteristic that you'll find on this lady fern. So that gives the shape of the overall frond an elliptical shape where it's widest in the middle and narrows down on both ends. So this, remember, is Atherium Felix Femina in the Dryopteridaceae family, lady fern. All right, I'm taking the left and staying on the boardwalk as I go around Fish Park here. And down here, off the side of the boardwalk, is another fun plant to learn. This is horsetail, and you'll probably see it several times out here as well. This is also related to the ferns. It's not a flowering plant. It produces spores like the ferns, although it produces the spores early in the spring, so we won't see them right now. But one thing you can notice is these interesting green sort of bottle brush looking stems, and that's another common name for it, is bottle brush or scouring brush, also because these stems contain silica, which makes them kind of rough or scabrous feeling if you touch them. And so if you're camping and you need to wash your pots and pans, you can find some of this stuff and use it to scour your cooking utensils. So the scientific name is Equisetum, E-Q-U-I-S-E-T-U-M. Equisetum, which if you know horses, the genus for horses is Equus. So it comes from that, and the common name horsetail. Equisetum arvense, A-R-V-E-N-S-E. And the family name is Equisetaceae, E-Q-U-I-S-E-T-A-C-E-A-E. Equisetaceae. All right, I finally found some alder growing low enough where I can actually reach it. There's alder growing all out here, red alder. You see the trunks. Here's the trunks with that light color bark, frequently with lichens, the lighter spots growing on the bark. So there's lots of them out here, but most of them are taller, and it's hard to find one down where I can reach it because I'm not very tall. So this is our red alder, Ulmus rubra, in the Betulaceae family. And it's very similar to that cascara leaf like I was mentioning, because it has those very straight pinnate veins, but this one is much more toothed, or even double-toothed. So big teeth with smaller teeth on the teeth in the margin, and more ovate shaped, a little bit wider towards the base of the leaf. So this is red alder, and you'll frequently see the cone structures, which, remember, aren't really cones. They're sort of a woody fruit, really, that contains the seeds of the red alder. It's not focusing good. There, got a little bit. So these little cones will be all over the place, these little fruits of the red alder with the seeds inside. Here's a review of our sword fern, Polisticum munitum. So this one is only once compound, and the pinnae are toothed around the margin. This one is evergreen, a little bit darker green color than most of the other ferns because of that. And then the spores on the backs of the leaf, dark brown spores. So sword fern in the Dryopteridaceae family. Okay, I'm taking a right now along the boardwalk, and I found a salmonberry left, and you can see that salmonberry, or a salmon color, but it gets its name from, and this butterfly shaped leaf. Okay, here's a review of our black cottonwood with that very ovate or deltoid shaped leaf coming to a sharp point. Well, not really sharp, but distinct point. And the brownish hairs on the back sides of the leaves. So this is Populus balsamifera, black cottonwood, in the Salicaceae family. So it's also in the willow family, and produces a similar catkin type flower that breaks apart and blows around in the wind early in the spring. Another look at one of our willows. I think this is also the Hooker's willow with the stipules at the base of the stem, although the leaves on this one are smaller overall than the previous one that we saw, but it's still very white, hairy on the leaves. So Salix hookeriana. Here, after it came out into this opening from the boardwalk, I'm taking the Sockeye Trail, which is on your left. There's a few escaped cherry trees out here. So remember, look for those glands. You can see the little gland on the base of the, at the base of the leaf on the petiole. They're very tiny, but there they are. Those are the glands. So that's your clue to the genus Prunus. So this is Prunus cerasus, I think, C-E-R-A-S-U-S. And that bark with the horizontal lenticels. Although this one's a small tree, but you can still see that. Okay, now I'm going right and following the steelhead loop on to the next boardwalk. Okay, there's an interesting plant growing here with needle-like leaves, so it's a conifer. And the needles are flattened on the branch, so they just come out in two directions, or two-dimensional basically. And if you crush them, they have a sort of an orangey, citrusy scent to them. It smells really good. And on the back sides of the leaves, you see those white stomata lines like we've seen on several types of needle plants. So this is grand fir. Abies, A-B-I-E-S, grandis, G-R-A-N-D-I-S. And it would produce a cone. This one's a little bit young, may not have produced cones yet. And the cone would sit up on top of the branch. In the true firs, the cones sit up like this on top, and then they fall apart. They don't last on the ground very long. They just, when they release their seeds, the whole cone just kind of disintegrates and falls apart, so you won't find them very often. So this is grand fir, very shiny green needles. Makes a good Christmas tree because it smells good also. And the family is Pinaceae family. Okay, there's also some escaped apple trees out here. There's even some apples high up in the branches there, you might see. The leaves look very similar to the cherries, but it's not going to have those glands down here on the base. So this is apple Malus sylvestris rosaceae family. And another common sort of weedy plant you might see growing in the grassy areas. This is a wild daisy, or wild chrysanthemum. This is, or oxeye daisy is another name. The scientific name is leucanthemum, L-E-U-C-A-N-T-H-E-M-U-M, vulgare, V-U-L-G-A-R-E. And the family is Asteraceae family, so the same family as that sunflower and dandelion we saw earlier. So it has this head-shaped inflorescence. This is not one flower, this is a cluster of lots of tiny flowers tucked in tightly into that receptacle, forming this head inflorescence. So oxeye daisy, wild daisy, leucanthemum vulgare. And there's also some non-native evening primrose growing out here. You see these yellow flowers with 4 large petals. It's 4 petals. One of the few things that is distinguished by having just those 4 petals instead of 5 or more. And then this is the capsule fruit where the seeds are contained, and that's all along the stem where flowers have already fallen off. And you can see the leaves, very lanceolate kind of shaped leaf. So evening primrose, scientific name is Oenothera, O-E-N-O-T-H-E-R-A, biennis, B-I-E-N-N-I-S, Oenothera biennis, and the family is the Oenograceae family, O-N-A-G-R-A-C-E-A-E, evening primrose. Here's a review of our Douglas fir. There's not a whole lot of Douglas fir out here in this area. Generally, they're going to be in the drier areas, but there's a couple of Pseudotsuga menziesii, Pinaceae family. All right, down here off the side of this boardwalk is a very large leafed plant. This is skunk cabbage. It doesn't have the flowers right now, but in the spring it produces a yellow flower, which is actually a yellow bract subtending a spike or a tight cluster of tiny flowers. And it produces a smell to attract its pollinators, which makes it stinky, so skunk cabbage is its name. You see these large leaves. These are all basal rosette leaves. They're all coming from the base of the stem. It doesn't produce much of an erect stem at all, and just produces that flower down at the base, usually growing in very wet areas. You can see there's water all around here. So skunk cabbage. The scientific name is Lysichiton, Lysichiton, Americanum, Americanum, and the family is the Araceae, Araceae family. And here's some buttercup growing all down in here. They usually like these wet areas too. You can see these yellow flowers, 5 petals, and then a cluster of stamens, many stamens. It's a good clue to the buttercup family. And the compound leaf, this is a divided leaf, at least 3 times, but then it can become lobed or even fully divided again. Just an herbaceous plant growing down here on the ground. The scientific name is Ranunculus, Ranunculus, muricatus, Muricatus, and it's called the spiny fruited buttercup because when you see the fruits that it produces, there's a little bit there. There's some more over here from last year, the brown ones. It has a spine coming off of the seed. So spiny fruited buttercup, Ranunculus muricatus. The family is the Ranunculaceae family, Ranunculaceae. All right, here's our other willow. There are actually probably more than just the 3, but these are the 3 I can most usually identify. And this is the one that I can almost always figure out, as confusing as the willows are. This one, if you notice the shape of the leaf, and it comes down to this more attenuate and acuminate point at the tip. And it's also very shiny on the top. And then underneath, it's a little bit glaucous, grayish color, rather than being hairy or pubescent. So this is the Pacific willow, Salix, S-A-L-I-X, lucida, L-U-C-I-D-A. Lucida means shining, referring to this shiny upper surface of the leaf. It also has the stipules at the base of the petiole, like the hooker's willow does, but with this shinier leaf and more lanceolate and attenuate tip for the Pacific willow. And the family is the Salicaceae. And this will often grow into a very large tree, as we have here. Here's a review of bracken fern growing in here. Here's an interesting shot of the uncurling of the frond. So these are fiddleheads that are uncurling as this frond opens up. So remember, bracken fern is 3 to 4 times compound leaf. So this is all one leaf going down there, and it's divided up 3 or 4 times compound with, oh, and a nice ladybug. I won't flip her off. We'll come over here. And the spores would be tucked underneath on the bottom. You won't see them because they're underneath the edges of the leaf margins there. Bracken fern, Pteridium aquilinum, in the Dinstadtiaceae family. Right here's another one you will see a lot of with these purple flowers up at the tip. They have, let's see if they're gonna give them. 5 petals, although one petal is smaller than the other 4. And these very almost linear, lanceolate, almost linear leaves off the stem. And they can be very tall. Can be up to 4 feet high or 6 feet high even. This is fireweed. Scientific name is Epilobium, Epilobium, Epilobium angustifolium, Angustifolium, fireweed. And you'll see it growing in weedy areas along roadsides. Another introduced weed, not native to the area. And when the fruits are produced, they are wind carried, and so they have a little plume, sort of like dandelion, and they will blow in the wind off of these plants. Here's a review of our beaked hazelnut, which is Corylus cornuta in the Betulaceae family, similar to the alder leaf. So toothed on the margin like the alder leaf, pinnate veined, but having a little bit more crisped or crinkly margin. The leaves are typically rolled or folded. They can be kind of revolute in that way. And the tip being more of a mucronate kind of tip where it comes out to that little point there. And it can even be cordate at the base of the leaf. Some of these are. So a lot of good variation going on there. And pubescent. You can feel the pubescence on them. Not as soft as thimbleberry, but very fuzzy nonetheless. So Corylus cornuta, beaked hazelnut. I don't see the fruits on this one, but hopefully we'll find that eventually to see that beak. It's related to the hazelnut you buy in the grocery store when you buy nuts, but has a different structure on the outer casing around the nutlets. Okay, there's some wild rose growing in here. See that very rose-shaped flower with 5 petals and lots of stamens in the center, characteristic of the rose family. And then compound leaves. So these are the leaflets. This is all one leaf. Alternate on the branch, and you can see the prickles. This one is not heavily prickly like some species are. And then they're developing their rose fruits down here after the flower falls off. These are the rose hips, which is the fruit of the rose, kind of like an apple structure, which is also in the rose family, by the way. So this is Rosa, R-O-S-A, Gymnocarpa, Gymnocarpa, Rosa Gymnocarpa in the Rosaceae family. And it makes this large thicket-like structure from the vines and the twining stems. Okay, this is a new one. This is Pacific 9 bark. And it has interesting leaves, kind of a lobed, 3-lobed leaf, although there can be lots of variation that you'll see in these leaves. Palmately veined, alternate on the stem, and sort of a reddish color on the stems as well. And this cluster of flowers, this is the inflorescence that it's producing. So the scientific name is Physocarpus, Physocarpus, Physocarpus capitatum, 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 referring to this inflorescence, which is a capitate type of panicle inflorescence. And if you get further back on the stem, the bark becomes more peeling. So you can see some of the peeling of the bark down there. And also on these leaves, if you have your hand lens, flip the leaves over and look on the bottom of the leaf. This is one that has stellate hairs, stellate pubescence on the bottom of the leaf. I won't be able to show, you won't be able to see it with just the camera, but get your hand lens and check these out. They have cool hairs. Stellate means star-shaped, so the star-shaped, star-branching hairs. Pacific 9 bark, Physocarpus capitatum in the I think Rosaceae family. Here's a review of our evergreen blackberry. So compound divided leaf, very cut up leaf. Another name is the cut leaf blackberry. And that purplish stem, it usually has that too as well. So this is Rubus lacinatus in the Rosaceae family. All right, this is black hawthorn, another new one. And again, you can see a lobed pattern in the leaf, but more pinnately lobed on these hawthorn leaves. Alternate on the stem. They also have stipules down here at the base of the petiole and thorns, true thorns, not prickles, because this is a modified stem. It's coming out where the bud would be. So hawthorns have true thorns. This lobed leaf, scientific name is Crataegus, Crataegus, Douglasii, Douglasii, black hawthorn, or it's possible this is one of the escaped cultivated hawthorns, which are Crataegus monogyna, I think. I think the cultivated one has smaller thorns and the native one has larger thorns. So I'll have to look that up and check that again. But hawthorn, true thorns. Here are some of the flowering catkins, or leftover inflorescence of the Pacific willow. So you can see that fuzzy part, that's what comes out, blows in the wind, but it is originally formed in this catkin structure. And then they fall off pretty quick, but we're lucky enough to still find a few to see here on the Pacific willow. All right, one more weedy plant you'll probably see a lot of. This is curly dock, D-O-C-K, dock, or Rumex, R-U-M-E-X, crispus, C-R-I-S-P-U-S, and it is in the Polygonaceae family, P-O-L-Y-G-O-N-A-C-E-A-E. You can see the leaves down here are sort of ovate to elliptical shape, and they're getting the red coloration for the fall here because this one's in full sun. Reddish color stem also. And then these are the flowers and fruits and seeds up at the top of the plant. It's again a wind pollinated plant, so it doesn't have a lot of color to attract pollinators, but then it produces these winged seeds. It's another kind of winged seed that will blow about in the wind and spread the plant. It's called curly dock or crispus, Rumex crispus, because of this curly margin of the leaf. Looks like potato chips, crispy when they've been fried. So Rumex crispus, curly dock. Okay, not sure you'll be able to see this really well, but I finally found some of the seeds of the big leaf maple. So right there, they have that large wing, because just like the leaves on the big leaf maple, the seeds and the wings of the seeds are also very large. So big leaf maple, you can see that maple, large maple leaf over there. Acer macrophyllum, there they are, Acer macrophyllum, Aceraceae. All right, here's one more new one here. Well, you never know, I might find another one. This is our Sitka spruce. So you don't want to grab this one very hard. You see the needles, but they're very prickly. When you try to grab them, they're very stiff and they will poke into your skin, so be careful. So it's different from Douglas fir because those are going to be very soft. These are very prickly. And this scientific name is Picea, P-I-C-E-A, sitchensis, S-I-T-C-H-E-N-S-I-S, Sitka spruce. And the spruces are normally going to have their cones hanging down from the branches of the tree. Remember the firs, except for Douglas fir, which is not a true fir, the true firs are going to have cones that sit up on top of the branch. Spruces are going to have the cones that hang down. I don't see any cones on this tree right now, so I can't show you those, but it's be more like a pine cone hanging down on a spruce. So also, if you get just one of these needles and feel the edges of it, it's four-sided. It's kind of square, each needle, instead of being a flat needle. So square needles, prickly, Picea sachensis in the Pinaceae family. Last one back here in the parking lot, I promise. This is Spirea, or hardhack is another common name for it. You see these pink fluffy flowers at the tip, sort of this conical shape inflorescence. This is a cluster of flowers at the tip. And the leaves, get one that's in the sun. Similar to the ocean spray that we saw, it's really usually just toothed on the top half of the leaf margin, and then the bottom half is more smooth. But this one doesn't tend to become lobed like the ocean spray can. But it does have those fluffy flowers similar to ocean spray, but pink. So this is a scientific name Spirea, S-P-I-R-A-E-A, Douglasii, D-O-U-G-L-A-S-S-I-I. And the family is the Rosaceae family. All right, so I hope you'll get a chance to come out to Fish Park. I know I threw a lot of plants at you today, but take notes on each plant and what I've talked about. You can look them up in the book also and write down the things that they mentioned to help you identify that plant. And we will keep having quizzes to identify them. I know it would be better if we could get out and look at them together, but hopefully you will be able to get out and find them for yourself. And let me know if you have any questions.